Okay, people have been asking for it forever, and now that we are so close to the big finale film, it's time for me to finally cover the Venture Brothers. And what better place to start than the blonde-haired Swedish murder machine himself, bane the henchman everywhere, and the bodyguard of the famous Venture family, Brock Samson. Brock is a beloved character, and for good reason. He's an absolute badass, and he'd do anything to protect those helpless Venture boys. Basically, for one of the most dangerous men on the planet, he's got a real heart, even if he hates showing it. And he's got a complicated history. So let's take a look at what makes this murder man tick and dive into the life of Brock Samson.
This is Brock Samson. He's a full-on god. Men write him love letters and women name their vibrators after him.
Though we know a lot about Brock, there's plenty about his life that is still shrouded in mystery. He was born in Nebraska to a single mother, the older of two brothers, though we never actually got to meet any of Brock's family in the show. Brock's last name, Samson, is likely a reference to the legendary Israelite warrior, Samson, whose power stemmed from his famous hair, which makes sense considering Brock has one hell of a mullet. Venture Bros is a show that plays various archetypes, and understanding what classical roles Brock serves helps us understand Brock better as a character.
Yeah, I feel like that Jewish guy who lost all his powers when they cut his hair off.
Samson?
Lenny Kravitz? It's not all about you, you know.
Brock allegedly lost his virginity at age 14. Normally I wouldn't include that kind of detail, but if you've watched Venture Bros, you know Brock is a hypersexual character. Getting laid is a major part of his life. It's implied that Brock may have lived in Minnesota at some point. He wears Vikings branded headphones, plus Hunter yells this at him.
You're from Land O'Lakes country, damn you!
Brock was also a star athlete, attending State University on a football scholarship. Coincidentally, he crossed paths here with countless people who would be a major part of his future, including Rusty Venture himself, the Monarch, Pete White, Mike Sorayama, Baron Underbite, a fun nod to a common occurrence in comic books, Marvel especially, where every important character seemed to go to the same school for some reason. Brock and Rusty were actually roommates, but the two almost never interacted, mainly because Brock was busy playing sports and getting laid, which obviously made Rusty jealous. Brock's time at State would also be cut short. He lost his scholarship and was kicked out of school following a horrible tragedy on the football field, where Brock accidentally killed their star quarterback, Tommy. This is as far as we can tell Brock's first brush with death, and he did not take it well at all. The guilt sent him into a drunken spiral that ultimately ended with him beating the crap out of Rusty and his friends. The death of Tommy would continue to haunt Brock for years too. We see him have nightmares about it. In fact, when Brock entered this machine at the Venture compound that probes your mind to determine your deepest desires, one of Brock's was for Tommy to forgive him.
Don't worry, but it's okay that you killed me.
It was an accident.
That wasn't your fault. I could have never tried to run.
Before leaving school to join the army, Brock apologized to Rusty, the first real conversation they'd ever had, and in a twist of fate, Brock also revealed something to Rusty that would change his life forever and likely lead to the pair's reunion down the line.
Someone from, Venture Industries called while you were at the infirmary. Your dad died.
After leaving school, Brock became a Marine and showed such promise that he caught the attention of the Office of Secret Intelligence, an organization of super spies. You know, think S.H.I.E.L.D., G.I. Joe, MI6. Brock has a literal license to kill. It's fascinating to see the way his first brush with death so deeply affected him, but also somehow led him down this road to become the murder machine we all know. Would his life have turned out differently if he hadn't accidentally killed Tommy? At the time, the OSI was deep in a bloody conflict with their most hated enemy, the terrorist organization known as Sphinx. This conflict was known historically as the Pyramid Wars. Brock's mentor during his time with OSI was Colonel Hunter Gathers, a man as strange as he is brilliant when it comes to the art of spycraft. Brock definitely saw Hunter as more than a superior officer though. He did grow up without a father figure after all.
He was the second closest thing to a father I ever had.
Hunter seemingly molded Brock into a perfect, unflinching weapon of war. There's pretty much nothing that Brock can't fly, drive, shoot, or stab. He's shown throughout the series to survive multiple deadly injuries that could easily have killed lesser men.
Someone opened the bay doors on him. He should be dead.
Venture Bros writers often speak about how Brock's true power comes from his simplicity, comparing him to Wolverine or Superman, who never need to question themselves too much or too often, which tends to make Brock's actual moments of introspection all the more meaningful. On one of his first missions for the OSI, Brock would have his first encounter with KGB agent Molotov Cocktease, the woman who would end up being the love of his life. On that mission, Molotov killed Brock's partner, and while attacking in response, Brock killed her father, something they never let each other forget.
You killed my father!
After you killed my partner.
Molotov was the Catwoman to his Batman, the Black Cat to his Spider-Man, a femme fatale who would dip in and out of his life for various reasons at various points, and also one of the few who seemed capable of actually putting up a fight against him.
Does it hurt, my little Samson? Let Mama kiss it better.
The tragedy of their burning attraction to each other being that they could never actually be together, both figuratively due to their Cold War era adversarial nature, and literally due to Molotov's Russian iron chastity belt. But it's very clear that Brock's deep feelings for Molotov remained through the rest of his life. He literally counts the days they've been apart.
How long has it been, Samson?
3 years, 48 days.
He wouldn't even listen to a record with Hank because of the memories with Molotov attached to it.
It's a woman! The only woman I ever loved.
In fact, in that same episode with the device that showed Brock's deepest desires, we actually see another one of those desires is to finally be able to sleep with Maul.
I'm ready, Brock Samson. I'm ready to go all the way.
No way.
Brock was also the one responsible for Maul losing her eye, something he creepily but affectionately kept by his bed. Maul found it to be the latter, surprisingly.
I can't believe you kept it.
Brock's tenure as an OSI field agent would come to an abrupt end due to a botched mission to try and expose Hamilton G. Phantomos as a member of the Guild of Calamitous Intent, and to reveal that the guild itself even still existed. Events that would ironically turn Hamilton into the villain known as Phantom Limb, who would later be a major leader of the Guild of Calamitous Intent. As punishment, Samson was demoted and assigned bodyguard duty to watch over his former college roommate and son of super scientist Jonas Venture, Rusty Venture. Many people felt Brock taking up the role of nanny and nursemaid to the Venture family was well beneath a man of his many talents, including Molotov cocktease.
Last chance, Samson. What's your answer?
Sorry, Maul, but go Team Venture.
Rusty himself didn't make the job any easier either, often demeaning Brock and treating him like hired help, while also not so secretly wanting Brock to be his friend. Early on, when it was just Rusty and Brock, there didn't seem to be much of a personal relationship at all.
Ah, don't be so squeamish. Kinda takes a little of the pressure off your job, doesn't it? Don't talk much, do you?
But eventually, Brock was pretty much accepted as a member of the family, especially by the two Venture boys, Hank and Dean, who basically saw Brock as a second father. In fact, at many times throughout the series, it's shown the boys respect Brock much more than their actual father, and given that he's their literal protector and is so damn cool, how can you blame him? Brock would even start to give the boys life advice, just like a father should. And we know that on a deep level, he really cared for his work with the Ventures and for those boys. Despite his obligations to OSI, he actually never reported on major aspects of the Ventures' lives and operation.
And none of your reports on Dr. Venture ever mentioned nothing about no illegal clone farm.
You sent them reports about me?
Working for the Ventures, Brock's personal legend as an unhinged henchman slayer would grow, obviously primarily dealing with henchmen of the Monarch, who caught the brunt of Brock's ire the most. Over the course of the show, we do see Brock soften a little bit on henchmen, be it his eventual respect for Gary, aka Henchman 21, who goes through his own journey of self-actualization and competence, or even when Brock leads a group of Monarch henchmen into the field at the Battle of Cremation Creek, which even seemed to win over the very henchmen who feared him.
I've beat on most of you in the past.
I forgive you, Brock Samson. I was asking for it. I love you, Brock Samson.
Brock being the Venture's bodyguard was actually secretly part of an OSI project called Rusty's Blanket. The idea being to place important agents close to each generation of Venture super scientists in hopes that if they ever tried to abuse the power of this mysterious Victorian artifact known as the Orb, they would have to be killed for the good of all humanity. This revelation also means that Brock was part of a much larger legacy of Venture bodyguards. Fortunately, neither Kano nor Sandow actually had to kill their Ventures like we thought they might have, but the belief that this happened led to some major personal strife for Brock as he was torn between his love for the Venture family, who adopted him as one of their own, and his loyalty to his OSI mission. But luckily, he didn't actually have to make that decision.
My dad hid this for a reason, and we have to respect that.
But shortly after this, things changed for Brock in a major way. He's convinced that OSI was trying to kill him, and gives himself up in an attempt to stop major bloodshed between OSI and the Monarch at the Venture compound. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop the Monarch's malfunctioning suit from taking out countless henchmen, OSI agents, and Venture Boy clones. It's pretty brutal, all before Brock realizes the truth. OSI was actually never after him. It turns out the people trying to kill him were all a play by Molotov Cocktease's own mercenary group, using Brock to take out their own competition. The strain on his mental state alongside the absolute onslaught of horrible things he has to see regularly leads Brock to quit entirely, and not just quit OSI.
OSI! Who needs them? Where are you going? Aren't you gonna help clean up this mess?
I said I quit.
Brock is actually nearly killed immediately following this event in a massive car explosion that would end up lodging Helper's head in his chest. He survives with the help of OSI, and upon his escape, he recruits Dr. Volcano for a discreet operation, outfitting himself with a brand new metal plate. He also ships Helper's head and his jacket back to the Venture compound after this. After a stint healing and gaining weight with his friends Steve Summers and Sasquatch, Brock is recruited by Hunter to form a brand new version of Sphinx. As you might expect, he couldn't stay away from covert life for long. This new version of Sphinx dealt with the threats posed by supervillains by proactively taking out arms dealers, dictators, and mad scientists before they became fully fledged supervillains under guild protection. During this stint, Brock was able to live up to his potential by working outside of the strict rules imposed by the guild and OSI's treaties. Of course, this new arrangement didn't come without some level of hardship. It's clear that Brock really missed the boys, and even though Sphinx's HQ turned out to be on the vast Venture compound, he couldn't actually interact with Hank and Dean without needing to wipe their memories afterwards.
Like living next to the boys for a year and not being able to tell them that they're safe. That kind of sacrifice.
During his time with Sphinx, Brock would often be paired with the flamboyant Shore Leave, another former OSI man who seemed like both his polar opposite and his equal in many regards. Brock clearly has a lot of respect for Shore Leave, as he's one of the few people he allows to break his balls without repercussions.
So what is this, like your Fortress of Brockitude? Secret Brock Cave? Shouldn't you blindfolded me before you let me in?
Being a high-ranking member in Sphinx also meant that Brock would butt heads with his old boss, General Treaster, and the OSI pretty regularly. They even have to reluctantly team up along with the Guild and other organizations on one occasion, when members of each group were seemingly kidnapped by a new villain known as Zeus. Zeus, as it turns out, was actually a ruse by former Monarch henchman number 0, who had appeared to have been killed by Brock years prior. His failure to defeat Brock on Spider Skull Island would partially motivate him in his failed attempts to become a full-fledged villain. But despite his work with Sphinx, at the heart of Brock's story are his personal relationships, and the hardships that come with them. During Operation Prom, basically the Venture compound putting on a prom for Hank and Dean, Brock once again faces off against former lover Molotov Cocktease. I think this confrontation with Maul marks one of the biggest turning points in Brock's life.
Because you are a bad person. You don't know the first thing about duty, or honor, or friendship. I'm tired of spending my life chasing you.
But what makes it even more painful for Brock is that it turns out she's fallen in love with her rescue target that night, Monstroso, and Maul gives Brock a choice: stop her or save the Venture family from her assassins. Of course, after all he's been through, Brock does know about duty and honor and friendship, and so he chooses his surrogate family, letting Maul fall off the cliff and returning to the compound. And even though the Ventures were never actually in danger, as it was all a trick by Maul so that she could get away, it didn't matter. Brock made the right decision that showcased his growth over the series. Not long after this, Gathers becomes the new leader of the OSI, and as a result, Sphinx dissolves and most of its members, including Brock, return to duty as OSI agents under more familiar leadership. Brock's first mission back was to go after the guild's mysterious financial backers known as the Investors. He actually also crosses paths with Molotov again, learning that she's actually been an OSI double agent this entire time. But she's not the only double agent, and her new mission is actually to clean house for Hunter and kill all the guild double agents inside the OSI. Seriously, does anyone actually just work for the OSI?
You can't trust her, she is the enemy!
She's a mercenary, Samson. People hired her all these years with the enemy. As long as we pay better, she's on our side.
They end up faking Molotov's death, but it does seem that Brock genuinely moves on from her after this. He actually starts secretly seeing fellow OSI agent Amber Gold, unbeknownst to her boyfriend Headshot.
Everyone gets lonely sometimes.
They're not as lucky as us.
But the pair briefly couple up on the Gargantua 2 space station, and it seems like Amber really sees the heart behind Brock's gruff demeanor, especially when he's talking about the boys.
Look at you, practically fit to bust with paternal pride. You miss your old family, don't you?
While on Gargantua 2, the Revenge Society attempt to rob the space station. Though he's briefly captured, Brock learns that one of their members, Zero, is actually Henchman Zero from Spider Skull Island, and of course the later attempts to become a full-fledged villain. Brock would actually finish the job this time, snapping his neck through the bars of his jail cell. Brock, of course, helps the Ventures escape the space station, and they all fly home with Amber in tow. After Jonas Jr.'s sacrifice and the destruction of Gargantua 2, Rusty inherits Jonas's money and businesses, leaving him in charge of a massive company and fortune. Because of the substantial upgrade to Dr. Venture's life and financial situation, Brock is tasked once again with protecting the Ventures, now that they're actually a meaningful target for high-level arches. This new job brings him full circle, and though he has to work alongside his replacement, Sergeant Hatred, it seems like Brock ends up where he truly belongs, with his family. While in New York, Brock finds lots of opportunities to help those around him. He coaches Billy and White when they achieve hero status and face off against their own nemesis. He helps Dean study for his school entrance exams. He gives Hank advice for an upcoming upcoming date with a major crush, all while protecting the Ventures in their new high-rise home in New York City. He also gets involved with a woman named Warriana, a member of the New York-based superhero group Crusader Action League. At first, Brock has no patience for any of these heroes, and he's frustrated when she steps in to help him tackle one of Venture's many new villains. But while tripping on experimental god gas, Brock goes to Warriana's apartment and confesses his deep attraction for her.
Your beauty is your strength, and I submit to it. Take me, and let me know what it's like to be with a woman.
This is a fascinating turn for Brock. It is without a doubt the first time we've ever seen him truly submit to someone. I expect that given his dominating nature, the idea had never even crossed his mind until meeting someone of Warriana's strength and size. The pair actually are shown to make a great team as well. It seems that, in a way, this new dynamic is cathartic for Brock. Someone who has always been a protector, now paired up with someone who can just as feasibly protect him. Brock continued his duties guarding the Ventures admirably, and the last we saw of him was at the very end of the series, when the Council of 13 sends a bunch of henchmen to try and kidnap Dr. Venture. They're then locked in the Venture high-rise with Brock Samson there to hunt them all down.
Your target, A1 Brock Samson, has been really bored lately and will enjoy the shit out of this.
And it's fitting to see a bloodthirsty, threatening Brock in the final episode of the show. And that is Brock Samson's entire journey thus far. With the Venture Bros film Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart about to release, we know we'll get at least one last Brock adventure, and from the trailer it looks as though Brock and the OSI are hunting down Hank Venture, who went missing at the end of the series. Brock is one of the coolest characters in TV history, but what I love most about him is that despite his absolute unparalleled badassery and killing skills, the man has principles and heart. He's had his heart broken, he sacrificed his own well-being for his loved ones, and even when things have gotten tough and he's walked away from it all, he's returned a better and stronger protector. How can you not love Brock Samson? Folks, I hope you enjoyed my first Venture Brothers video. Expect more where this came from. I'll be covering the new film as soon as it releases, and then I plan to do more character videos like this one for so many of the series' incredible cast of heroes and villains. Let me know in the comments what characters you most want to see me cover. There are almost too many, so we gotta get started somewhere. Thanks for watching. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.